at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time, Alex, and we have some things to get into because the 49ers filled out their practice squad, number one.
Accurate.
And then there are just some questions surrounding the 49ers offensive line depth and a few other former 49ers that are on the move that we thought we could bring up, talk about a little bit.
Absolutely. You definitely got to talk about it because it does have an impact on San Francisco in some way, shape, or form. How big of an impact? We'll just have to wait and see. But before we get too far into it, make sure right now you smash that like button. Join the Cutback crew today. Become one of the newest members, 1,500 plus strong. An incredible group of people who love getting into the comment section, having great conversation, which we love on this channel, because sometimes it sparks, topics and things of that nature, including this discussion on online depth, because it was something that popped up the other day in our video talking about this 49ers offense, right, in this plan of attack and what they can do, and just a thread that has popped up as the 53-man roster was being solidified. People worried about Tom Compton. But let's start first with the two practice squad signees. Who are they, Ant? Do you have a little bit of information on these gentlemen? What are they about? Why are they here in San Francisco? What was the reason for pulling the trigger on these guys?
Yeah, so as soon as I saw it, I went ahead and looked them up. I wasn't very familiar with them, but I've now watched film on them. I've now looked at their draft breakdowns and stuff like that, so I can make sure that I'm at least equipped to be able to talk about them. The first one is Isaiah Zuber. He's a 6 foot, 180-pound wide receiver. He played at Kansas State and Mississippi State. Return guy. I think that's what you're looking at as a slot receiver that can, add something in the return game. I think he is just a depth piece on your practice squad. But overall, it's a good signing, right? And then they go after Rashad Smith, who used to be college teammates with Azeez Al-Shaair at Florida Atlantic. So you get him, and he's a 6'1", 220-pound linebacker. Notice the size, 6'1", 220 pounds. And me and you went over the draft profile together. It was very interesting, the things that it sounded like, because if you read it point by point about the things that he was good and successful at, it's the way he was rangy, sideline to sideline, had good instincts, good in coverage. All of those things just make you think of every single 49ers linebacker that they've picked up that's an undrafted free agent. Al-Shaair, Flanagan Foles, even Marcel Harris. Now they switched to linebackers, kind of the same build, but all these guys are very similar.
Absolutely, they're similar, and this is the thing, right? With these names and them going after these types of guys, it really is setting the table for them believing this is a guy that they can work with and develop and can mold right into what Azeez had transformed into, what they believe Demetrius Flanagan Foles can be. This is why they're making this move for this gentleman here, and ironically enough, right, this guy, he gets picked up by the 49ers. He started with the New York Giants. The New York Giants, ironically enough, release him, don't sign him to the practice squad, and go after Justin Hilliard. So both teams end up flopping linebackers that they were working with in the preseason. But yeah, the draft profile stuff that you had read off, and then I kind of went over a little bit. It's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny in the sense of the Niners have a niche, a thing that they're looking for with linebackers to develop. The big thing is speed, right? Intelligence and coverage ability. You have those three things. The 49ers coaching staff believes they can do enough with you to get you on the field and functional and operating in the system. Being one of the big things was size, him needing to put on strength, which is, again, a knock on a lot of these linebackers that the Niners have been bringing in, because they were safeties in college who were smaller framed guys who, they maybe played in the box, but they were not shedding tackles like crazy. These are all things that can be developed. The strength can be added on. You can add on power. You can add those things on. You can't teach speed. You can't teach athleticism, and you can't teach intelligence. You have those things. We're willing to work with you on the strength and the power, and making you, helping you become a better surefire tackler, or putting yourself in position to make tackles. But you got to show us that you know where to be, how to get there, right, and that you're quick enough to do it.
And his weaknesses are exactly the same as the other guys. He doesn't shed blocks very well. He sometimes waits and sits at the second level and doesn't get to first level in the contact point. Sometimes takes bad angles. Is sometimes an arm tackler, so he misses tackles. Sounds familiar, right? Whenever you hear about a 49ers linebacker besides Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, but even Quan Alexander fit that mold, right? A very fast linebacker who had bad angles at times and would miss tackles occasionally. This is what the 49ers are looking for in their linebackers because they believe that they can develop those weaknesses into strengths. And once you do, then you get a complete linebacker. You talked about the intelligence and the fact that they have, they're able to read things very fast. That's what you're looking for, an instinctive football player. And then they take that instinctive football player and they develop and hone his skills to be able to handle everything you need to do as a linebacker. And then they can get it done. So it makes sense to me that they would pick up somebody like this, put him on the practice squad, see if they can develop him. I mean, it really doesn't hurt them anything. Costs them a little over $150,000, no big deal. And if he develops into something, then you struck gold on somebody that could eventually be depth or at least a special teams player. And if not, you took a look and now you find somebody else.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do, right? Is try and make little moves that you think can pan out in your favor and turn out in your favor without you having to spend a lot of extra additional money on it. Because the 49ers, the training camp or the practice squad roster comes in at about $2.88 million, so just under $3 million. You don't want to eat up a bunch of cap money and things of that nature on guys on that practice squad. The Niners are finding, right? You got to find ways to get these guys in underneath so you're not having to fork over a ton of money for guys who potentially could never see the field.
Yeah, and that's why you didn't see Clinton Dix sign. Would have got paid $252,000 to be on the 49ers practice squad and could have been claimed by another team, right? No, he's looking to get the money that he would get for the vet minimum, which is over $1 million, which is a lot more money. So he's waiting. He's waiting for somebody to get hurt and then them to need him on a 53-man roster. That could ultimately be the 49ers if something was to happen to a safety. I think they would bring in Clinton Dix at that point. But he's betting on that. He's waiting on that, and that's why he's not on the practice squad. The other name that I was surprised didn't end up on the 49ers practice squad a little bit was Pettis. I thought maybe we would bring him in. The fact that we brought in another wide receiver that wasn't him means he's probably still in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse because what did we just talk about? The guy's a slot receiver that plays is a little slight weight side, plays a kick return, punt return. It kind of sounds like Dante Pettis, except not Dante Pettis. So that was a little interesting. It's like, okay, you must still be in the doghouse. Kyle Shanahan has yet to remove that leash and collar off of Dante Pettis. No,
Kyle Shanahan actually, what he did was he ran out to a field, right, in New York and let him loose and was like, go, boy, go. And then turned around and hopped in his car, got to the airport, and got back to San Francisco as fast as humanly possible. And under no circumstances is Kyle Shanahan sending the jet to bring Dante Pettis back home. No, it's probably not happening. If it didn't happen right now, it's not happening.
It could. I still picture.
You still believe so?
I still picture my Dante Pettis as a homeward bound situation where he's working across country to get where he needs to go, and one day he's going to show up at Kyle Shanahan's door, and it's all going to be forgiven.
Shadow.
And he could be on the. On the practice squad. Well, I don't know. I don't think he wants to be on a practice squad. I'm sure he's waiting to see what else is out there. I don't even know if the 49ers would be interested. I think it was kind of like a little bit of a pipe dream because I want to see this guy come there and compete. And, if we needed him, why not? I mean, come on.
Listen, at this point, it doesn't hurt being on the practice squad.
No,
and we know he can return kicks and punts, but we haven't seen him operate well as a receiver in the system. But he's had moments. He forgot
2017.
He had his moments in 2017.
He was a world beater in 2017.
A world beater is that's a bit much.
He had over 400 yards receiving.
He had a good year.
As a rookie.
He had a good year.
Playing with Brian Hoyer.
It was not good quarterback play.
No, it was awful. It was really Beathard and Hoyer.
I know.
And if you have over 400 yards, I mean, that's almost an all-pro season I'm playing with those two guys.
That's the threshold for all-pro with that kind of quarterback is basically 400 yards?
Yeah, I mean, and who can forget that he had, the Thriller dance in Halloween on the pass played from Jimmy Garoppolo.
It was nice. Which one was nicer, that one or the Minnesota Viking ones over the top where Jimmy kind of lays it out and he dives and tiptoes his way through and just barely nicks his way in?
Oh, it's definitely the other one. It's not the one he had on Halloween. That wasn't even that great of a play. It was just he was wide open.
He was wide open.
This is the dance. I think that's the way.
The dance sold it for you? Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. If the dance sold it for him, that's A-okay. Speaking, though, of former 49ers, Ant, we got to talk about the fact that the Seattle Seahawks signed the best corner in the league in the offseason and then dealt him to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 5th-round pick today. Shocking to me. A little bit surprising. I didn't expect Ahkello Witherspoon to be dealt. I felt this was going to be a storyline going into these games, right? That this was going to take the rivalry and just ratchet it up another notch. Not the case at all.
No, and I think that's a little interesting because their corner room is not very deep. The Seahawks don't have that many talented players up there. They had a couple of 49ers, him and DJ Reed, and I think it's interesting that DJ Reed beats him out. DJ Reed was a 5th-round pick. Ahkello Witherspoon was a 3rd-round pick. So, I mean, it's very interesting. I think that I was looking forward to seeing Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk against Ahkello Witherspoon. I've always liked Spoon's skill set. The length, the size, the speed. It was always a physicality, and you're wondering if he could, pull it off. But if you ever put it together, you knew he could be something special. He hasn't been able to pull it off, and obviously Pete is over it. Pete's done. He trades him for a 5th-round pick. I mean, yeah, Seattle needs a ton of help everywhere, but my guess is Ahkello Witherspoon is in a better situation to be successful for him. And at least now I can root for him, because I couldn't root for him when he was with Seattle, because whenever you wear those colors, you are dead to me.
True. So he's no longer dead to you now.
Even Jerry Rice was dead to me for a minute.
Oh, wow. That's strong.
He shouldn't have went to the Seahawks.
So it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Look, though, I think for them, too, this also did some stuff for them. By making this trade, they did free up $1.5 million in cap space, giving them 6.8 in total, so they can try and potentially make another move. That may have been more of the reason why.
It's to sign Dwayne Brown.
Totally, probably could be. It definitely could be. And that's enough money there to hopefully entice him to get him out there and active and going for this group. Because he was only set to make $4 million was the contract that he had, and he was basically being able to compete opposite of DJ Reed. Lost it out to Trey Flowers. He didn't have a terrible preseason. He only gave up 3 catches on, I think it was 8 targets or something of that nature. It was just the big play to Jerry Jeudy in one of those matchups that might have just done it in for him and just sealed the deal for Trey Flowers. But hey, you know what? Good luck to you out there in Pittsburgh land. Hopefully it goes better for you there than it did here. Luckily for him, Pittsburgh's defense, a lot better than Seattle's defense. Might actually bode well and better for Ahkello Witherspoon out there with the Steelers.
Yeah, definitely have a better pass rush. So he's got that going for him.
Accurate.
And he won't have to worry about somebody smacking gum in his ear on the sidelines. So,
man, you can't. I mean, there's not enough money in the world that I would pay to not have that happen.
I would just recommend he stay off TikTok.
Stay off TikTok. Yes, stay off TikTok. Don't be Corvetting it up over there with Juju. Juju Corvetting his way into not getting a big contract this offseason. Big yikes there for Juju Smith-Schuster, and hopefully not a big yikes for Ahkello Witherspoon. But let's talk and get into this O-line depth a little bit, because it's a fair question. It's a fair question for the faithful to have. It's a fair question for the TCC to have, right? Is there enough depth on this O-line, and are you insulated enough from injuries if something were to happen? I know people feel Tom Compton. This was a point that was brought up on the 53-man roster live stream when we were going over the fact that Tom Compton was that last guy. That was one of the things. How deep is this group if you're having to rely on Tom Compton? And again, it comes back after the fact that a lot of those moves were made, right, because they needed to find a way to keep Colton McKivitz and Tom Compton. They wanted to keep both of these guys around. If you release Tom Compton, waive him, try and put him on the practice squad, that's one less veteran lineman that they're not able to keep around. And so therefore you're having to pick and choose, pieces and depth and guys of that nature. And there's no guarantee that if Tom Compton gets cut or waived, seeing as he's a veteran who has a lot of experience in this league and was on the 49ers roster last year, that he is not going to get picked up by another team. Whereas Colton McKivitz, a younger guy, only been in the league a few years, hasn't put a lot on tape, and what he did put on the preseason tape at times was not good this year, so there was a better chance to him to sneak by. But Ant, are you worried about O-line depth? Is Tom Compton being on the roster the reason why you would be worried about O-line depth? Or if you're not worried about O-line depth, what's your reasoning?
I'm not worried about Tom Compton because I think Tom Compton is a capable player. He's not going to go in there. He's never meant to start. I mean, that was the thing that was confusing last year is when they brought him in and he was almost considered the starter at right guard for a long time. That would make me nervous. It doesn't make me nervous he's a guy that's going to come in and fill in 1 or 2 games. Well, I will say about Aaron, the reason that this is so heightened is because of Aaron Banks. If Aaron Banks would have developed the way that everyone expected him to develop, and he would have been right there pushing Daniel Brunskill, we would be talking about the fact that we're not worried. We have an interior guy in Aaron Banks that can come in at any moment if there's an injury. We have a guy that plays on the outside in Jalen Moore that can come in anytime if there's an injury, and we're okay. The problem is Aaron Banks didn't develop, and because Aaron Banks didn't develop, now you question the depth on the O-line. It's the same thing with the DBs, right, with the corners. Aubry Thomas didn't develop to the level that they expected, so they had to keep an extra guy. And that is exactly what they did here. They've insulated themselves. Now, the key for this that really helps put the 49ers depth in a good, nice spot is Jake Brendel. They bring Jake Brindle back, and the fact that he can play center and guard, which they brought up. He played 5 plays at guard during the preseason. Yeah, I know it's not a lot, but John Lynch said he can play guard, and I've seen this talked about before. He's a veteran that has a lot of experience. Same with Tom Compton. So you know what to expect from these guys. You know that you're going to get consistent play when they're out there. They're not going to wow you. They're not going to dominate. They're not as good as the starters. But what they are is very disciplined guys that can execute your scheme. So you can. It's a lot like when we had Ben Garland. You knew you weren't going to get anything special out of him, but you knew you were going to get his job done. That's what he needed to do. Those guys can do it. Your wild players that are coming off the bench as far as depth are Moore and Banks. Banks isn't there, and you're hoping at some point during the season he'll get there. But these guys constituted the way they are because we got to remember Jalen Moore's going to be the first guy in on the outside.
Yep.
And then Jake Brindle's probably going to be the first guy in on the inside.
Yep.
And I think I feel confident in both of those guys in the way that they played during the preseason. Even PFF agrees, which I say that scoffingly. But I think that overall the depth thing is a little overblown. I understood it a little bit more when you just had Banks, Moore, and Compton because of Banks' weaknesses. However, when you added Brindle in there, it fixed everything, in my opinion, to where, not that it's a great depth thing, but we can live with it. Like, it's going to be okay. We're going to be fine because Compton did play a lot better this preseason than last season.
I agree with you. He definitely played better this preseason than last preseason, and I'm not as concerned with it because I am not one of those people that put Aaron Banks on a pedestal, right? I think that's the thing that separates us from other talking heads, other shows, other podcasts, right? Is people put a lot of stock in Banks being the starting right guard. You know, Brunskill was not going to. I mean, remember, think back to our talk with Chapman. It was going to be Banks. Like, he was convinced it was going to be Banks.
Yeah.
So this is just one of those things where I didn't have that kind of belief that it was going to be Banks. I hoped, right?
Yeah.
You hope that it can be the case. You really want that to be accurate, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But Aaron Banks isn't a scrub. Like, he's not terrible. This isn't a bust of a pick. This is a guy who's got to develop.
Yeah, well, we don't know yet. I'm gonna be clear. On what he's put on film, we don't know yet.
But he's not a. You can't say he's also a bust, though.
No, I haven't seen him play a single down in the regular season.
No, he's somewhere in the middle. He's somewhere in the middle between, you know, what everyone wanted him to be and what some people put him on the pedestal and what some people are now reacting to. Find the middle ground, and that's where you're going to be right now with Aaron Banks, which is where we've kind of been. This is a guy who needs time. He needs to develop. He needs to get comfortable in the system. He needs to understand the speed of the game at which he's playing at, because speed is his, dealing and handling speed is his biggest weakness.
It is. It's the lateral movement. That's what Maurice Hurst was dominating him with. Those are what these defensive linemen are taking advantage of. There is an expectation. He was put way up here. I mean, everyone put him up here. He was going to be the upgrade from everyone we talked to in the offseason, right? Whether it was Tyler Menting, John Chapman. He was the upgrade over Daniel Brunskill.
Yep.
He was going to change this game. And they even started getting us to believe that, hey, maybe this guy is that guy. We will kind of ignore what we see on film. The problem is even where I had him in my thought process, he hasn't reached. That is what makes me nervous about him. That's why I say I'm not ready to say he's not a bust.
Okay, fair.
I don't think he's Joshua Garnett. Let's just get that straight. He's not Joshua Garnett.
Fair. But
he's definitely not as far along as I thought he was going to be. Intelligence-wise, I think he is. It's the lateral movement. And now I'm worried about his weight. I mean, I'm really worried about it because he doesn't move quick enough, which means they thought he was a guy that could get to second level. He hasn't proven that consistently, and he has to. But he's a rookie. But I think that's what everyone's looking at is the depth-wise. You expected to have a force as a backup. You don't have a force. What you have is somebody in development. So if you get to him, you're in trouble. Now, the key is, though, they have Compton, they have Brindle, and they have Jalen Moore. Tom Compton and Jalen Moore can play inside and outside. So you don't have to count on Aaron Banks. He's your 9th lineman. Expect him to be inactive early on in the season. With Brindle, you know what you have now at center. So if Alex Mack goes down, at least you don't lose Daniel Brunskill at guard, which doesn't affect your guard depth. So they did insulate themselves that way. So overall, they built it pretty good. But I just think that is the key, is that Banks definitely, like you said, did not reach the expectations that everyone was putting forth for him. I think what's sad is because I had him getting up there and maybe pushing Daniel Brunskill during the season, and now I don't see that, which means he hasn't reached my expectations either. And that gives me a little bit of a pause and a little bit of nervousness because I thought this guy was going to develop a little bit quicker than he is right now.
That's fair. And look, I don't want to knock that or say that there's anything inaccurate about it, because that's a fair assessment. It's accurate assessment. It's based and rooted in the reality of the situation with Aaron Banks and what he's put on film and what he's put on tape and what we thought his strengths would be and what we thought his weaknesses would be. And I haven't seen a whole lot of the strengths, and I've seen a lot of the weaknesses. Like that's what the reality of the situation has been.
Yeah, I think they've been heightened too. I think that they were showing off, in bad ways. But I by no means think he's a bust. I by no means think that he can't develop into a very solid and very good player.
It's not time to hit the panic button?
No.
Okay.
It's just a guy that needs a lot more development than I think was put out there because he was a second-round pick. If this guy was taken in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, like if you flopped him and Jalen Moore right now and you said Aaron Banks is the 5th-round pick, nobody bats an eye. But because he went to the 2nd round, you know which players were there in the 2nd round. And one of them wasn't an offensive lineman, but was Asante Samuel Jr., which everyone wanted. And you see the development of Aubry Thomas as well. And people are like, wait, we could have had Asante Samuel Jr. and we got Aaron Banks. And I think that's the thing. You start getting kind of related to those people that were around you. I mean, it's like Solomon Thomas. We talked about it. Solomon Thomas is a 5th-round pick. He comes in and plays these good snaps for you. Nobody bats an eye. But because he's the 3rd overall pick and he's sitting there around Patrick Mahomes and all these other guys, it's like, wait, we got what? We got Solomon Thomas. If you put George Kittle at 3, though, everyone's okay with it because George Kittle is who he is. So unfortunately, where he's drafted gives us different expectations for who he should be, and he has to live up to those expectations. And if he doesn't, he's always going to be deemed as somewhat of a bust, even if he, just like Laken Tomlinson, 1st-round pick, but no one considers him an all-pro, so he's looked at as kind of like he should have went later.
It's true. Great expectations for Mr. Aaron Banks, and some great expectations as well for Aubry Thomas. This is a guy who's dealing with a similar sort of stuff right now. Also,
he is farther along, though.
Yes, I would say he's farther along.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's those two guys were 2 of the picks, right? Aaron Banks and Aubry Thomas on draft day that the both of us were not thrilled with because there were 2 other guys we wanted the Niners to target at those same positions.
And they were. They wanted him.
Yeah.
They wanted 100%. They wanted Little, and they 100% they wanted Paulson Adebo. John Lynch, I don't think why he knows why he said it, but he said, "Yeah, we were targeting Adebo," and it just didn't work out. And
so sad. It's still sad.
They just missed it, right? They tried to play the game, and it just didn't work out for them overall. And now they got who they got, and it's okay though that these guys can develop. But they're definitely in more of a development than the guys that they were going to get. Paulson Adebo would have been pushing to start for this football team.
Yeah.
And New Orleans went down and just nabbed him.
Gosh darn you, Saints. This is so sad. Alexa, play Despacito.
Anytime that Sean Payton moves up for somebody or thinks about moving up for someone, they usually end up being pretty good.
He has a good track record.
He wanted to go for Patrick Mahomes. Yep. He got Andy Reid outdid him and got him. So just remember that. These guys are smart. They're very coy in what they're doing. And the 49ers, they were playing the game. They were really trying to work that draft, and they did a good job overall. But there was that 2nd round, that 2nd to early 3rd round, where they had a little bit of struggles. And it showed up, and it's showing up on the field a little bit because Banks and Aubry Thomas aren't developed the way those other 2 guys would have been.
You didn't necessarily need them to start, but you definitely needed them to push, right? They needed to push and get themselves close. They need to make themselves a little bit closer. That was our hope. I know that was my hope for Aaron Banks, was that this guy would be close and pushing to get close. And then Aubry Thomas, right? I didn't think he was going to be ready this year, but maybe by midway through the season, this guy is closer to being at that cornerback 2 spot. It's not looking that way.
No, Aubry Thomas is not going to be. If there's some sort of an injury, it's not going to be him.
It's going to be Demo.
It's
or Dante Johnson first, and then
it'll be one of those 2 guys. Aubry Thomas is definitely down the bench, and he's just got to develop. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, the athletic ability, the intelligence, all that stuff is there.
Yeah,
he just got to get it right. It's the same with Banks. It's all there.
Just got to get.
He's got to get it down, and a lot. They have things they need to work on. I think Aubry needs to put on a little bit of size. I think he needs to play more physical with receivers, and I think Banks needs to work on his lateral movement. So I think if they clean it up, though, we'll be okay. But unfortunately, that's what happens when your plan doesn't go exactly the way you want. You kind of tear it up and go a different route, which they did. That's why they traded up, to get the running back Trey Sermon. I honestly believe they always planned on getting Trey Sermon at 102. But as soon as their corner went off the board, they knew let's get Sermon now. Let's not miss out on Sermon get him, we know we can get Aubry Thomas at 102. So they flipped the script on what they wanted to do, and it just didn't work out exactly how they want. Now, it could work out overall because Adam Peters is the one that came up with Aubry Thomas. He doesn't usually miss. So we'll keep an eye on it, but yeah, it didn't work out. And a lot of people were mad at us on draft night because we said that. A lot of people were mad because we said this isn't where they wanted to go. The 49ers wanted to go a different route. John Lynch issued, we're looking at Paulson and Debo. And now, unfortunately, it's kind of still there. It's fruition. These guys are more project players than the guys that they were targeting.
Absolutely, indeed. So we're just going to have to see what happens. And shout out to the newest member, Caleb. KNDR Collectibles becoming a member of the Cutback community, the Cutback crew. Thank you, Caleb.
Acknowledge him, Alex.
He has been acknowledged. He gets his own little spin. Look at his name gets to be up there for the rest of the show. And thank God we're wrapping up. We were giving Caleb all this free plug here. My goodness gracious. Hey, by the way, Caleb, before we sign off, where's our thing? We never got it.
No, it never came.
It still is not here. What the heck, man? You want me to acknowledge you? I will, but I want to also acknowledge the thing that you're going to send us and we're supposed to open up, but it's fine. It is what it is. Look, let us know down below. What do you think about these practice squad signings? Did the Ahkello Witherspoon situation blow your mind as it did ours? Or, the O-line depth. Maybe you don't care at all about Ahkello Witherspoon. That's A-okay. Are you worried about the O-line? Let us know in the comment section down below. And while you're talking away, commenting away down there, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. And head on over to the 49ers Cutback shop where you can grab these sweet 49ers Cutback shirts. Rep the Cutback crew. Whatever your heart desires, we got it there for you.
Yeah, and it's never been a more exciting time to be either a member on YouTube or to jump over to our Patreon where you can get original TV shows that we are putting out there like 49ers Cutback in Time, Big Yikes where we go over funny takes. We got a lot of fantasy football stuff. Alex is leading the charge on that. And now Madden playthrough as well. You can do that. The Madden League is going to be coming up real soon. There's going to be a lot of cool content. So if you are into Madden, you definitely want to do that. But you have to hop over to the Patreon for those shows that are pretty much releasing every week now.
Yep, they will be weekly. There will be at least one of each every week. And, if I just feel like posting up an additional one or two, you'll get that as well. So you'll get at least one a week of fantasy football and Madden, so you don't want to miss that. So make sure you hop on over there. It's a lot of fun on Patreon. We have a good time. Ant, this is a lot of fun to talk about. We got so many things still coming up. Tomorrow is a big, big day. Or excuse me, today is a big day. It's not tomorrow. Today. It's today. We got a members-only live stream right after this. So if you're not a member already, become a member just like Caleb did. Hit that join button. Pay the $5.99 fee, and then hop on over into the members-only live stream. We're going to have a fun little hangout session, talk some football, and just talk the podcast in general and the Cutback crew. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it is going to be a good time. You can join the other members, get acquainted. I mean, most of them already know each other, but you just get to know each other a little bit better. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think I'm going to enjoy it as well because it's going to be a different setting than what we normally do on our live streams. And it'll kind of be more of an intimate thing, where it's less people, so it's a little bit different. Everyone can be heard a little bit better.
Yeah.
So hop in there. If you're not in there, go ahead and do it. It'll be fun. And if you don't want to, that's fine too. We're okay with that. You just you do whatever feels right for your enjoyment, and we're all for it. We like you no matter what.
We love you no matter what. And we're gonna keep putting out that great content for you daily, no matter what, regardless. So tune in, be subscribed to join the Cutback crew, and until the next one, 49ers fans. You stay safe.
Remember, the right way
is always the 49ers way.